creativity is something that is part of being human. Why do you think it is that some people don't think they're creative? How does that flow get shut off for some people?
Well, good question. You know, I see that in students who come in and they haven't written much, but they kind of are interested, or they want to try this, or they have kids and they want to write some kids poems for the kids. And usually what I see is that they haven't been positively reinforced for it since they were beginners. But I remind them, every one of you, probably everyone in this audience, learned through poetry how to read. Dr. Seuss was the first set of books. There are newer versions and newer popular kids authors, but it's poetry that introduces us to language often, and it's that repetitive, musical, rhyming kind of language that is sort of the hallmark of creativity and the beginnings of teaching. So if people have forgotten that, I just say, look, you already know how to do this. You've been doing it all along. Maybe nobody's reinforced your thoughts as an adult, being expressed this way, or being able to express yourself this way. And so, you know, if people ask me about writer's block all the time, and I say, well, there is no such thing. Every writer stalls sometimes, but the only way you get beyond a block in writing is to write. So if you write garbage for a while, so what? You're still writing, and out of that will come something good. I always tell my students, because they know I'm a ridiculous Bob Dylan fan, that he's written more bad songs than most people have written songs. He's got some really pretty terrible songs, but he just keeps on writing, and those gems pop out. So in class, if they come in and they, you know, oh, mine's not as good as everybody else in class, or oh, everybody else is doing these great things, and mine seems kind of dumb, I just say, you know, you will find your own voice, and interestingly, one of the poems I use to develop their awareness of their own voice is that Lewis Carroll poem. Talk about it, and I read it, and, you know, get the kind of tone of voice so that they remember when they heard it as a kid, and they remember being, ooh, beware the Jabberwocky. And there's a mood to it, even though it's utter nonsense, much of it. And so what I try to get them to do towards the end of that poem, there's a sense of, you know, he took his vorpal sword and he slew that Jabberwocky, or was it the Bandersnatch? I can't remember. There's victory, and there's this sort of joyous ending to the poem. So in that tiny little nonsense poem, you have all the elements of great literature. You have a beginning, a middle, and end. You have conflict and resolution. You have those things. And they all know the poem, and they know the mood, and they kind of remember that from being young. And then I say, okay, so what I want you to do is don't even worry about language. Ignore language. Just make up some way to express. And I use different terms. I'll either use fear, joy. This last, actually did this just a week and a half ago. And this time I just used the word glee. I said, well, let's just express glee, because that's not as obvious as joy. And sometimes when you say joy, they say, well, my mom hugs me and I feel joy. Or, you know, the box of puppy dogs is sort of, you know, everybody feels joyful around a box of puppy dogs, right? And I say, okay, you can use images, and you can use those sort of things that bring you joy, or glee, but I give them, you know, glee as a word. It really means entertainment, music, and specifically, if you ever had a glee club in your high school or college, it's singing together in harmony. And so I said, you know, I give a little introduction like that, and I say, now I just want you to express glee and ignore language. You can combine words, you can make up words, and you'd be amazed every time I've done this. It's such a joyful, I love this class period, because people just, you know, flippity floppity floop, and, you know, do these crazy kid-like sounds and noises, and it all sounds like goofy fun, but what's really going on is they are, every single time, utterly unique. They come out with sounds, words, and thoughts that aren't part of their normal synapse firings. You know, kids learn almost all their synapse firings are set by the time they're 5 when they're reading Dr. Seuss. And if you just keep using that, right, and keep doing those kinds of creativity exercises, you go beyond that block, or, oh, I can't do this, or I don't have any new ideas. Everybody does, it's just not used enough. And so if you exercise it, it's there and it reawakens. And it's amazing to me when we do this, everybody laughs, we have a fun time. And there's always 3 or 4 in the class who say, oh, I couldn't think of any funny words. So they just write about what makes them happy, and that's fine too. It goes in the same direction. But what it does biochemically in the brain is it starts new firings that have never been fired before, and no one else will ever repeat them. And I said, look, what you guys said, it seems goofy. It's completely new, and it'll never be replicated again. So the more you do this, the more you discover your own voice.